and all things politics, economy, and development in Nigeria and around the world. In this live, we're going to talk about the confusion over the amendment of the Electoral Act 2026 with regards to the issue of electronic transmission of result in real time. You know, right now there is confusion going on about what is the state of the Electoral Act that was passed by the National Assembly 2026, the bill. Did they allow for electronic transmission of result in real time or not? That is what we are looking into, because the electronic transmission of result in real time is going to determine whether the forthcoming election in Nigeria is going to be free and fair and be able to be a reflection of the will of the Nigerian people. This is important because we saw what happened in 2023 election, where the mode of transmission of the results became an issue. And that is why it is very key that this matter is addressed. Without further ado, how do we transmit the 2027 election results? Now, the confusion started from the recent proceedings over the Electoral Act Amendment Bill 2026 that was passed on February 4, 2026, ahead of the 2027 election. Now, in the initial report, which was carried by the mainstream media in Nigeria, it was stated correctly too that the Senate rejected a proposed amendment to make mandatory real-time electronic transmission of election results from polling units to the INEC IReV portal compulsory. The Senate rejected to make real-time transmission of election result from the polling unit to INEC IReV portal compulsory. They rejected this because what they rejected was that they don't want polling units or presiding officers to upload, sign, and stamp results immediately after counting at each polling unit. That was what they rejected. Now, there had been semantics over what they did or didn't do, but that is the real issue. And what was reported was that the Senate instead returned the existing language from the 2022 Electoral Act. That was what even the Senate President himself confirmed, that the presiding officers shall transfer results in a manner as prescribed by the Commission. Now, this keeps the electronic transmission permitted, but at INEC's discretion, not mandatory in real time. So I don't know why there is so much debate on this. The fact of the matter is that the Senate, led by Senate President Akpabio, did not permits electronic transmission of the result in real time. That is the fact. Now, because of the backlash that followed, because of criticisms from Nigerians and political leaders or opposition leaders like former governor of Anambra State and the presidential candidate of the Labour Party in the 2023 presidential election, and the potential nominee as presidential candidate of the ADC in the 2027 election, Peter Obi, and Atiku, the presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party in the 2023 presidential election, and who is also going to be nominated as the presidential candidate of the ADC, and the civil society. The Senate tried to walk back from the reality because Nigerians interpreted what they did as an insult to the quest for transparent election. Following this backlash, there have been an effort to make clarification, even by the opposition senators. But the matter is that it has not cleared the main fact that the electronic transmission of results in real time was not what was approved. I have seen Enyinnaya, Abaribe, and co in the opposition giving their own viewpoint. But what I heard the Senate President said is that they retain the electronic transmission of results as was contained in 2022 Electoral Act ahead of the 2023 election. And that, my friend, means that there is no electronic transmission of results in real time. Now, the Senate, in the effort to walk back on the reality, the Senate President Godswill Akpabio insisted that the Senate did not reject electronic transmission outright. And he said that it was written as in the 2022 Act, and reports suggesting rejection were misleading. How is that misleading? There was an amendment that's supposed to be done to make it electronic transmission of results mandatory. You didn't do that, and you returned the old one, and you are still telling us you didn't reject it. That is just a matter of semantics. It's not true. That's not a question of semantics. It was rejected. Now, opposition senators like Senator Enyinnaya Abaribe, who is the minority caucus, and Victor Umeh, emphasized that the Senate unanimously approved electronic transmission and not transfer, distinguishing it deliberately for legal clarity to avoid past court disputes where transmitted results were deemed unknown to law. The Senate approved electronic transmission. If the Senate approved electronic transmission, the electronic transmission, was it mandatory? Was it mandatory? Because what Nigerians are looking for is a mandatory electronic transmission in real time. Because that is the basic question, which Enyinnaya, Abaribe, and Umeh, they haven't given much better clarity on it, telling us that what was approved was electronic transmission to avoid the issue of legality after the election, has not addressed the fact that Nigerians want mandatory transmission of the result after they were cast at the end of the day. Now, Enyinnaya Abaribe, who this channel holds with a lot of respect and regard, described the approved provision as supporting real-time transmission. If that was the case, then why did the Senate President, who ought to know better, is telling us that what they retained was the 2022 version of the means of transmission of the result? Because Abaribe described the approved provision as supporting real-time transmission via IReV to prevent ambiguity and manipulation, and is attributing the confusion to side conversations and procedural noise during clause-by-clause debate. Well, whatever might have happened during the clause-by-clause debate is different from what Nigerians are feeling. Because the reality is that if you don't amend the section that requires real-time transmission of the electronic of the results, it means that we are still saying the same thing, that the Senate rejected it. So the question, the confusion is, the Senate, did they make it mandatory or compulsory that the results will be transmitted from the polling unit direct to the INEC IReV in the presence of party agents when everybody signed, including the party agent, the electoral officer, and all those that ought to sign, that it be uploaded immediately. That is the core issue. Because what Nigerians are looking for is electronic transmission of results in real time. And don't forget that this was how the Independent National Electoral Commission literally deceived Nigerians ahead of the 2023 election when they claimed that there are going to be a compulsory and mandatory transmission of the results from the polling units to the INEC IReV. First also Okoye, who was their information director at that time, was insisting that that was what was contained in the Electoral Act. And because of that information, many Nigerians were forced, were encouraged to go and register to vote, only for the election to turn out to be an election in which INEC will decide whichever method they likes to use, that they can use, which is exactly what Senate President Akpabio has submitted, admitted that that was what they did. And that is not what Nigerians are looking for. Nigerians are looking for a transparent election, and they believe strongly, and rightly too, that the best option for Nigeria is to have electronic transmission of the result, that the result be transmitted live in the presence of even the voters who are patient to wait. And of course, I will encourage any voter not to go, but to wait after the election to ensure that the result from his polling unit, his or her polling unit, is uploaded in real time, because that is the main issue at stake. Don't forget, even in the last election, we saw the live transmission of the result. And it was when Peter Obi was leading, it was alleged that INEC deliberately switched off the transmission of the result. So this electronic transmission of results can work, because why it is very important is that INEC will no longer be in a position to do what they did the last time, when it was alleged that when Peter Obi was cruising to victory, INEC allegedly deliberately switched off the transmission of the result. So that is the major issue at stake. And that is why Nigerians are pushing that INEC should not be in a position to do what they did the last time. Because when you make the transmission of the result compulsory, INEC will have no choice. They will have no choice but to ensure that the result that they are uploading must be in real time. Because a situation where you give INEC the discretion to transmit, to collate, to transmit based on its own discretion is not only bad, it's also dangerous to our democracy. That is the truth. It is not only bad, it is dangerous to our democracy. Because that will be giving INEC too much power. And that shouldn't be the case. INEC does not deserve to be given that much power to choose as it likes. So it is important that this issue is sorted out. That's why there's a huge outcry across the country over this matter. There is a huge outcry. Because a situation where you have an election and INEC can decide to do manual coalition, it can decide to do electronic coalition, it can decide to do as it deems fit. That will give them the power to manipulate the election. And that is the last thing Nigerians have wish to see. So it is something that needs to be addressed. And the confusion that this has generated is not good for the Senate, because this Senate has become notorious for saying one thing and doing a different thing. You can see the Senate President is telling us that they didn't reject electronic transmission of result, that they returned it as it contained in 2022 Act. But the opposition senators are telling us that no, there were changes, that they changed it to electronic transmission. So which one is which? Don't forget that it is in this country that we are having a tax bill that contains different things. The one that was passed by the National Assembly is different from the one that was gazetted. So who do we trust now in the National Assembly? as this country is preparing for the 2027 election. Who do we believe? That is the problem. Who do we believe? Who do we believe? Between the Senate President, who do we believe? Between the Senate President and the opposition senators. Because whether we like it or not, the opposition senators, what they are telling us is that there were amendments to the act to reflect electronic transmission of the result. But the Senate President is telling us a different thing. This group, they are telling us that there was an amendment to it. But the Senate President is telling us, who is the presiding officer, is telling us that what was passed was a retention of what was contained in the 2022 Act. Who do we believe? Who do we believe? Because the report is saying that the Senate rejected amendment to clause 60, subsection 3 of the bill, which sought to make electronic transmission of results mandatory. That it was rejected. The Senate rejected amendment to clause 60, subsection 3 of the bill, which sought to make the electronic transmission of results mandatory. That it was rejected. And the Senate President admitted that it was rejected. But the only thing he was telling us was that they didn't reject electronic transmission of result because it had always been there since 2022. So they left it the way it is. So which one is Abaribe and Co telling us that they amended and telling us that there is confusion in the way it was communicated? This is very serious, because if you look at what was rejected is a provision that would have required presiding officers of the Independent National Electoral Commission to electronically transmit results from each polling unit to the IReV portal in real time after the prescribed form EC8A had been signed and stamped by the presiding officer and countersigned by the candidates' agents. And instead, what the Senate adopted was the existing provision of the Electoral Act, which stated that the presiding officer shall transfer the results, including the total number of accredited voters and results of the ballot, in a manner as prescribed by the Commission. Shall transfer. That is what was retained. Shall transfer. And you know what shall mean in law. That is what is there. Shall transfer. It was retained. Shall transfer. But Abaribe and Co, the opposition leaders are saying, or the opposition lawmakers are saying, that the changes transmitted shall be transmitted electronically. Now, this is very, very troubling. That we have a National Assembly that when they pass a bill, will now have to be educated more on the content of the bill they have passed. This is not good for our democracy. Okay? And why this is very important that it be sorted out before the next election. If you do not deal with this issue now, it's going to haunt the country and it's going to affect the outcome of the election, whether we like it or not. Once you did not make this compulsory, you create ambiguity, giving INEC the power to decide how they want to do it. So at the end of the day, the coming election will end up even worse than the 2023 election that we all are condemning as the worst in our history, where the election was glaringly stolen, allegedly, using the instrumentality of the Independent National Electoral Commission. Now, what can the country do about this? Now, let us assume, without conceding, that there will be no electronic transmission of the results. Whether we like it or not, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is holding Nigeria in the jugular. Why did I say this? The last time I checked, the majority of the senators in Nigeria are now in APC. The majority of senators in Nigeria are now in APC. Of course, APC held a majority right from May 29, 2023. The APC held a majority in the National Assembly. Now they are holding overwhelming majority. And because many of those senators, even the process of many of them winning the last election are questionable, they cannot stand up to be counted. You look at the number of APC senators now in the Senate. Look at the number of APC senator House of Reps members, including the new ones they have added. Just imagine the number of opposition reps that have moved to the APC, the number of opposition senators that have moved to the APC, and look at the number of opposition senators that are remaining now. If President Bola Ahmed Tinubu does not want electronic transmission of results, we can say all we like. They will not pass it. They will return it the way it is. And the Senate President has told us they have returned it. The public can only shout. But at the end of the day, what was passed to him through the Senate President and the clerk of the National Assembly is what the President will sign. And what he will sign, let us assume without conceding, is the one that will favor him. And that one is the one that there will be no mandatory electronic transmission of results. Who in the Senate can stop Tinubu now? Nobody. No senator can stop Tinubu. The House of Representatives cannot stop him. The Senate cannot stop him. So at the end of the day, if they decide to ignore the outcry of majority of Nigerians and go ahead with the amendment as articulated by the Senate President Godswill Akpabio. What do we do? What is the future of Nigeria? Is Nigeria going to say, okay, throw their hands up in the air in frustration and just allow the situation to remain it is, the way it is, or the way the APC and Tinubu wanted it? To me, that shouldn't be the option. That shouldn't be the best option. That shouldn't be the best option. And that shouldn't be the only option. The best option for Nigerians is to say, okay, President Tinubu and the APC, they rejected electronic transmission of result that will make the election transparent. Now we know that they are going to rig the election. How do we stop them from rigging it? That should be the next strategy by the Nigerian people and the opposition. How do you stop them? They have used their numbers in the Senate and in the House of Representatives to block the reform or make changes in the Electoral Act that would have given free and fair election. What do you do next? How do you counter them? Are you going to just participate in an election that you know you are not going to go anywhere if the status quo remains the way it is? Okay? What are we going to do? What are Nigerians going to do? What are Nigerians going to do? Are they going to just give up and just be talking in frustration and allow them to get away with it? There are some options that I would suggest that could be followed to address this matter. If the opposition are serious, the opposition groups are serious, okay? If they are serious about changing the APC in the coming election, if they are serious in doing that, there are options they should take beside berating the senators and all that, because that will not help. Because you look at the news, it's talking about how Atiku berates the Senate. Leonard Ejiofor, he said totally boycotting of the 2027 election. That's what he's saying. That if that is to be the situation where there will be no electronic transmission of results, that the best thing is to boycott the election. That's an interesting angle. Interesting angle. If the opposition in Nigeria could unite and say that the election will not hold, thank you for that position, because that's an interesting angle. If the opposition can speak in one voice and call on the international community and say the international community should intervene and that the 2027 election will not hold unless there is the amendment to clause 60 in the Electoral Act is effected, is added to the act, the amendment in 2026, that there will be no election. They will not participate. That will illegitimize whatsoever the INEC. Tinubu can contest alone, but that will make him no different from Abacha being in power. Or a military administration. If the opposition sincerely stood their ground and said no election in 2027 unless electronic transmission of results, is going to be at the centerpiece of whatever election that will take place. That's a very critical point, and I appreciate that suggestion that could be put out. Of course, I have my own idea on what can be done. But what I'm saying earlier, before I saw the message from Ejiofor, is that it is not enough to be condemning them. It's good to condemn what they have done, because I'm seeing a report that Atiku Abubakar has berated the Senate for rejecting mandatory electronic transmission of election results. That is very good. But the opposition should also be thinking strategically, like this Ejiofor pointed out. One of the things that could be done, that could be the leverage that could be used. Now that America is watching them closely, you can be able to extract a lot of things from both the Nigerian Senate, both the Nigerian presidency, because they know that the world is paying attention. America is paying attention to Nigeria. So the opposition can take advantage of that. That attention by the United States to extract that demand that the result must be transmitted electronically in real time. Now, Atiku Abubakar, in the statement that he issued on Thursday, said that one, that the rejection will undermine electoral reforms and weaken transparency, credibility, and public trust in the country's democratic process. Atiku said that the decision of the Nigerian Senate to reject the real-time electronic transmission of election results is a deliberate assault on electoral transparency. This ill-advised action represents a grave setback for electoral reforms and a calculated blow against transparency, credibility, and public trust in Nigeria's democratic process. According to Atiku Abubakar, at a time when democracies around the world are strengthening their electoral systems through technology, the Nigerian Senate has chosen to cling to opacity, protect loopholes, and preserve a system that has historically enabled manipulation, tampering, and post-election dispute. According to Atiku Abubakar, real-time electronic transmission of results is not a partisan demand, it is a democratic safeguard. It reduces human interference, limits result manipulation, and ensures that the will of the voter expressed at the polling unit is faithfully reflected in the final outcome. To reject it and adopt what is obviously a face-saving provision of the 2022 Act on electronic transmission of results is to signal an unwillingness to submit elections to public scrutiny. It's very, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar is very apt in this, because he said that this decision raises troubling questions about the commitment of the ruling political establishment to free, fair, and credible election in 2027. Nigerians cannot ignore the pattern. Every reform that strengthens transparency is resisted, while every ambiguity that benefits incumbency is retained. According to Atiku Abubakar, he said, I have consistently maintained that democracy must evolve with time, technology, and legitimate expectations of the people. Elections must be decided by voters and not by manual delays, backroom alterations, procedural excuses, or even by the courts, which section is shamelessly standing on the mandate of the incumbent. And Atiku Abubakar is making a call. He said, I call on Nigerians, civil society organizations, the media, and the international community to take note of this regression and to continue demanding an electoral system that reflects modern democratic standards. Nigeria deserves elections that are transparent, verifiable, and beyond manipulation. Anything less is an injustice to the electorate and a betrayal of democracy. He has said it all. Now, one of the key points he mentioned here is he called on Nigerian people. He called on civil society. He called on the media and the international community. Now, there are two groups of people that Tinubu has hijacked. Nigerians are not noticing it, but those of us who operate in the media space, we are noticing it. There are two key groups that Tinubu has hijacked, and he hijacked them because he had been using them since when he was in the opposition. Now that he is in government, he knew how to manipulate and use them. And that is civil society and the media. Civil society and the media. Anybody thinking that the civil society of Nigeria today will work against Tinubu in the coming election is wasting his time. I'm not trying to make a blanket blacklisting of all the civil society organizations. No, but I can tell you for free, the majority of the so-called civil society cannot do anything for Nigerians. They cannot do anything for Nigerians. I can tell you that for free. The present civil society, they have been working with Tinubu right from when he was in Lagos as opposition leader. So he carried them along. They can make half-hearted criticism here and there. They are working for Tinubu, majority of them. Majority of them, they are working for Tinubu. That is a fact. And then the media. The mainstream media in Nigeria is literally in the pockets of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. So anybody calling on the media in Nigeria, the media as we know it, the traditional media, the mainstream media, they are not going to help the opposition. They are not going to help what? The opposition, if that is what they are thinking. I see Atiku calling on the media. The media, they are not going to listen to Atiku Abubakar. They will flow with Tinubu. That is the truth. One thing you have to give Tinubu credit for is his foresightedness in knowing the strategic importance of the media and had put them, majority of them, in his pocket. Now, when you remove the civil society and you remove the media from the equation, what then is left? What then is left? Let me tell you, let me just give you a tip of the iceberg of what Tinubu did. Have you noticed that on the issue of Christian genocide in Nigeria, can you point any media in Nigeria that had the courage of its conviction to write editorial saying indeed that there was Christian genocide in Nigeria? Point one media organization in Nigeria that has the its own conviction to write editorial that there is Christian genocide in Nigeria. You won't find anyone. Why are they playing safe? They don't want to offend Tinubu. Because the position of Tinubu and the government is that there is no Christian genocide. So when you have that kind of situation, to think that the media will help you, the mainstream media as we know it, will not help this situation. The only group that Atiku mentioned here that will help is the Nigerian people. The media he's talking about, they are powerful, but how many are they? How many are there? Henry Ekobosi, I've seen you. Good morning. Good morning. You're welcome. You're welcome. So how many media? How many are there in the media? So it is the Nigerian people that Atiku and other leaders should be talking about. Mobilizing the Nigerian people. Sell the message to them. Now that they have started taxing Nigerians without providing anything for Nigerians, this is a good ground for the opposition to win more Nigerians against them. Despite the suffering they are passing through, Tinubu administration is removing their monies from the banks in the name of tax. All these are the kind of thing you use in mobilizing the people. For them to know that they are at war with the establishment, with the APC, so that they will see them as their bitter enemy that has to go in 2027. Unless you have the Nigerian people and remind them that what is going on is a referendum, that 2027 is a referendum on Nigerian people. Do you want to continue to suffer like this, or do you want a change? Now, when the opposition leaders are able to have the people on their side, you can then disregard whether the result is going to be electronic or not. If they refuse to make it electronic transmission in real time, the Nigerian people will be there to ensure that no INEC official will be in their polling unit and mess around with the result. The result must reflect the will of the people in that polling unit. So the idea will be protect the votes, polling unit by polling unit, polling unit by polling unit, polling unit by polling unit, across the 774 local governments in Nigeria, polling unit by polling unit, polling unit by polling unit. Even INEC will be shocked. They will call their paymasters and say, that thing you send us to do, we can't do it. Or Nigerian people have spoken. So what needed to be mobilized now is the Nigerian people. Are the Nigerian people better off today than they were before Tinubu came to power? Of course, we know the answer. But who is selling the message? Who is giving the message? Who is to deliver this message? And who has the lifestyle that is going to convince Nigerians that if he come in, he is not going to be like Tinubu, that there is something different. That is also where the challenge lies. Who is going to be the face of the opposition to lead this march to see out the APC? Who is going to lead it? Is it Peter Obi? Is it Atiku Abubakar? In my own estimation, it cannot be Atiku Abubakar that will lead this battle between the Nigerian people and the establishment. Atiku Abubakar is too an establishment person to be able to lead this. He doesn't have the organic following to be able to do this. He has his fans, but I don't know how he can be able to lead this successfully. When a lot of people look at him, as almost in the same bracket with Tinubu. I don't know how they are going to do it, but that matters. Who is going to be the face of the opposition? Who is going to lead it? Who is going to do the needful? Who is going to do the needful? That is what is needed now. What is needed now is not only condemnation, it is strategy. What strategy is the opposition going to use beyond condemnations? What strategy? Because this APC, they had stayed in the opposition for long, and the person in power has been in opposition for long before he became president. So he understands the nuances of the opposition system. He knows things that can work in the opposition. He knows things that cannot work. So when you are going after him, you must have strategy. You must frighten him to the level that you know that some of the things he wants to do, that you are ahead of him. That's the only way. You must show him that you are ahead of him. Because if you don't do that, he's going to have his way. And one of the ways to do that is to have the Nigerian people on your side. The opposition leaders, beyond lamenting what Akpabio had just told us, that they are returning the 2022 Act with respect to the mode of transmission of result. You must have a way of countering it. You either do what was suggested in this life, Oji, I think that's his name also, what he suggested. You either say that you must put that, amend that clause, and ensure electronic transmission of result in real time, or that the election should not hold. And if it holds, you will not participate. Of course, we know that there will be some sellout in the opposition who will go and contest, people who have no consequence, But when the major actors boycott the OGF, okay, I see you. So when the major actors, who are the major political heavyweights in Nigeria, boycott it, even they themselves will know that they are living on a borrowed mandate that doesn't have the support of the Nigerian people. That government, if it survives, will be one of the most disrespected governments in Nigerian history, even worse than military administration. So are you going to go the boycott angle? Can they use that leverage and say, okay, if you don't put electronic transmission of results, don't make it mandatory, we will not participate in the coming election? Can that be a better strategy? Can that make them to enforce electronic transmission? Even the electronic transmission of results, as good as it is, as the best option as it is not foolproof. Because whether we like it or not, like they used to say in local parlance, the Oyibo that made pencil also made eraser. So when you are using electronic transmission, be also aware that there are antidotes to it working successfully. So as the opposition leaders are pushing for mandatory transmission of the result electronically, they should also be looking at how to ensure that the results are not manipulated electronically by making sure they have their own IT experts who will also know what the INEC IT experts know and the government official IT experts know. So that at the end of the day, we're not going to have a situation where they might as well give you a Greek gift as a result of pressure. They hand you electronic transmission of results, but they have already worked out how they are going to do it. For instance, in the last election, when INEC claimed that there was glitches in the transmission of the presidential election result, note, it was only the presidential election result that was glitches. That glitch, if there is a glitch, which is something that could happen in the technology, what is the solution to it? If you say it must be compulsory electronic transmission and there is a glitch, what happened? Whether the glitch is man-made or technically a technical fault, what do you do? What happened to the result in that polling unit? Because your political enemies can jam results in some areas from being transmitted electronically. Nothing is impossible in the digital age that we are living. So that is why, as the opposition leaders are working on one strategy to another, they should also be thinking ahead of the government. Because I know that if the opposition put enough pressure, like Jafar suggested, you talk about if you threaten Tinubu that you are going to boycott the election if there is no electronic transmission of result. I can tell you for free, with the way the Americans are watching things, they will bend backward. They will bend their knee and allow it. But before they will do it, you can bet that they will put a strategy to be able to maneuver around it and still be able to get what they are looking for. So you have to ensure protection from every angle to ensure that the votes of Nigerians count. Now, before I come to the end of this live, if you are watching this and you have not yet subscribed to my channel, please subscribe to my channel, hit the subscription button, hit the notification bell. When you subscribe to my channel and hit the notification bell, anytime I have a new video, you'll be among the first to know. God bless you. And also, don't forget to like this live. Like it. If you like what we're saying here, if you agree with us, I want you to like it. It doesn't cost you anything to like what we are doing here. Just like the video. Show love. Okay? Show appreciation for the effort we are putting to discuss this issue. Because whether we like it or not, several media organizations, we cannot talk so freely as we are talking right now. On a serious note, several media organizations, you cannot talk freely as we are discussing. That's why, whether we like it or not, social media has brought a lot of opportunity to hear alternative views. And we cannot take this opportunity for granted. In the last election in the United States, it was the social media that made Trump win. If the opposition is going to win in 2027, it's not going to be the mainstream media that will do it. It is those of us in the opposition, those of us who are in the media, but we are objective in what we are doing. We are not beholden to the government of the day. We are only beholden to a Nigeria that works for everyone. So when we are live like this, we appreciate when you like what we are doing, when you uh, uh, at least that's okay, so that we know that we're not here just talking to ourselves or anything of that nature. We are doing what we are doing because we think that a new Nigeria is possible. We believe that this country can be saved. Okay? I see you, Peter Okafo. I see you, James. James Mano, I see you. I see you. Thank you very much. So I want people to also like what we are doing here, because whether we like it or not, we need to enlighten our people on what is possible and what can be done to change the narrative. Because the country is in a bad shape. Look at the insecurity in the country. Look at the poverty in the country. Look at the high cost of electricity in the country. Look at the tariff. Look at the tax. They are just taxing everybody. They don't care. It's only in Nigeria that they are taxing poverty. When fuel subsidy was removed, we thought that at least let us have a breather. But now fuel subsidy was removed and we have borrowed more. And we are still borrowing. And life has become so miserable in the country, unfortunately. So I don't know what you think about the confusion about the issue of electronic transmission or not. But what is obvious is that at the end of the day, it's the Nigerian people that will determine what to do. Whether they do electronic transmission, and whether Senate agrees on that or not. But the most important thing is that Nigerians should stand their ground that they should do it for transparent election. And the Nigerian people should know that the election of 2027 is an existential election. I see you, I see you. I see you, I see you, I see you. So whatever we need to do, we must realize that the 2027 election is an existential election. If we allow APC to continue, if they continue, it means that we have resigned ourselves to fate. We are only telling God to do what he can for us and nothing we can do by ourselves. It means that we are like the situation we find ourselves under military regime. We are, in the case of Abacha, there was a divine intervention to save the people. Left for that, Nigerians must appreciate that we are facing existential election in 2026. And one of the things the next government must do is to ensure that this tax reform of Tinubu should be thrown into the waste dustbin. That should be the first thing the coming government should do. Throw it to the dustbin so that Nigerian National Assembly that will follow will be a Nigerian National Assembly that will bring a tax that will be in line with the hopes and aspirations of the Nigerian people. That's, I'm coming, this is the end of this video, and that is not the end of the conversation. Whatever is your position on the confusion over the amendment of the Electoral Act 2026 with respect to the transmission of results, whatever is your understanding of it, let's hear from you at the comment section. Thank you for being part of this, and God bless you and yours.